The Happy Prince. Long ago, in the middle of a beautiful city, there stood a tall column. On top of it was a shining statue of the Happy Prince. The statue was covered with thin leaves of gold. His eyes were made of bright blue sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on the hilt of his sword. Everyone admired the statue. "How splendid he looks," said the townsfolk. "So bright, so beautiful." But the people did not know the secret of the Happy Prince. When the prince had been alive, he lived in a palace where sorrow was not allowed to enter. He never saw suffering, hunger, or tears. Surrounded by music and joy, he was always cheerful. That was why people had called him the Happy Prince.
Now, as a statue high above the city, he could see everything.
He saw the narrow streets and dark alleys where poor children shivered in rags. He saw hungry people begging for bread. He saw mothers weeping beside sick children. And though his face was made of stone, his heart was full of sorrow. "I thought happiness would last forever," he whispered. "But I was wrong. True happiness is helping others." One evening, a little swallow flew into the city. He was on his way to the warm lands of the south, but he stopped to rest at the feet of the Happy Prince. As he tucked his head under his wing, a drop of water fell on him. "Strange," he said. "Not a cloud in the sky, and yet it rains." Another drop fell, and the swallow looked up. To his surprise, the Happy Prince's eyes were filled with tears. "Who are you, and why do you weep?" asked the swallow. "I am the Happy Prince," said the statue. "When I was alive, I never saw misery. But now that I am high above the city, I can see all the suffering." Far away, in a little house, a poor woman sits by her sick child. She has no money to buy medicine. "Will you take her, my ruby? It is set in my sword." The swallow hesitated. "It is cold here."
My friends are waiting for me in the south. But when he looked again at the prince's kind face, he said, "Very well.
"I will stay one night and help you." He picked out the ruby from the sword and flew across the city to the poor woman's house. He laid the jewel beside her, then fanned the child's face gently with his wings until the boy fell into a peaceful sleep. The swallow returned, saying, "It is done." "Thank you, little bird," said the prince. And the swallow stayed, though he had meant to leave. The next night, the prince said, "Far below, I see a young man trying to write. He is cold and hungry, for he has no money for firewood."
"Will you take him one of my sapphire eyes?"
The swallow was sad. "Dear prince, your eyes are so beautiful." But the prince insisted. "Do as I ask. The young man's words may bring joy to many." So the swallow plucked out one sapphire eye and carried it to the poor student. The man's face lit up with hope. "Now I can finish my play," he whispered. The following night, the prince said, "In the square below, there is a little match girl. She has dropped her matches in the gutter. If she goes home without money, her father will beat her. Please give her my other eye." This time the swallow wept. "Dear prince, if you lose both eyes, you will be blind. Still, give it to her," the prince said gently, "for she is so small and helpless." And so the swallow took the other sapphire and placed it in the little girl's hand. She smiled and ran home joyfully. But now the Happy Prince could no longer see. "Stay with me, little swallow," said the prince. And the swallow stayed. The days grew colder, and snow covered the city. Though he was weak, the swallow flew over the city each day, telling the prince of the poor and hungry people.
And each time, the prince said, "Strip the gold from my body and give it to them." The swallow pecked and pulled until the prince's golden leaves were gone.
Piece by piece, he carried them to the needy. Soon the statue looked dull and gray, but the people he helped were warm, fed, and happy. At last, winter grew too harsh. The little swallow knew he could not survive much longer. Shivering, he flew to the prince's shoulder. "Goodbye, dear prince," he whispered weakly. "You have let me stay too long, but I must leave now," the prince whispered. "You have stayed with me through everything. Little friend, kiss me before you go." The swallow kissed him, then fell at his feet, lifeless. At that very moment, a crack ran through the statue. The leaden heart inside the happy prince broke in two. The next morning, the townsfolk looked up. How shabby the happy prince looks now. No gold, no jewels, they said. He is no longer beautiful. And they pulled the statue down. But high above, in heaven, God spoke to his angels. Bring me the two most precious things in the city. The angels returned with the broken heart of the happy prince and the body of the little swallow. God smiled gently and said, You have chosen well, for in my garden of paradise, this little bird shall sing forever, and the happy prince shall share my eternal joy for. He gave his riches to the poor, and the bird gave his life for a friend. Moral of the story, true beauty comes from kindness, not from gold or jewels. Giving to others brings more joy than keeping wealth for ourselves. Friendship and sacrifice are treasures that never fade.